Welcome to the Global Roundtable organized by the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. Today we have the pleasure of the company of Mr. Ambassador Eduardo Galvez, Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Chile to the United Nations. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And today we are going to talk actually about financing for development. But as Mr. Ambassador is representing so proudly and so well the Republic of Chile within the United Nations system, we would like to tell something about the Chile. Considered one of South America's most stable and prosperous nations, Chile recorded a GDP for the year 2012 of 270 billion. It has a population of more than 17 million. Marking it as a high-income economy by the World Bank. The country is seen by the United Nations Development Program as leading Latin American nation in many areas, including human development, state of peace, economic freedom, and low perception of corruption. Ranking high regionally in sustainability of the state and democratic development, Chile really is a role model of development for Latin American countries. Your profile, Mr. Ambassador, is equally impressive. You previously served as Ambassador and Director for Multilateral Affairs and as Ambassador and Director for Planning in the Ministry of Foreign Relations. Yeah. You also occupied other high-level posts in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile and also in Chilean diplomatic missions to the United Nations, to the World Trade Organization, and also to the Chilean Embassy to France and the United Kingdom. And as we mentioned before, in your work within the UN system, you have been particularly active in the area of financing for development. And right now you represent Latin America and Caribbean within the Intergovernmental Committee of Experts on Sustainable Development Financing. So let's start our conversation about financing for development. Let's just remind ourselves of the Conference on Financing for Development in 2002 in Monterrey, Mexico, which was definitely a milestone in the subject of financing for development because it was for the first time brought to the forefront of international organizations where heads of the United Nations, heads of the governments, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, World Trade Organizations, and also representatives of business and civil society participated to discuss financing for development. After that, as we know, there was a Doha meeting 6 years after Monterrey, where some, let's say, advancement and some progress have been made, but we know not enough. Can we start just by talking about what is financing for development, why is it important, what does it involve, and what has its history been up till now, in a few words?
In a few words.
In a few words.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation. And let me say that Monterrey, it was in 2002, it was important for three very simple reasons. First, timing. It was after, the 90s when we have so many important conferences and summits that provided really what was the agenda for development for the United Nations. We had the Rio, was on my environment, the social summit, it was on social issues. We have, and the conference on the children. We have so many important issues in the 10 years, and that was the last one. So timing was right. Well, when developing countries were saying, well, you're asking so many from us, but where is the money? Where is the finance? Where are the resources? And the usual answer was, well, you have the World Bank and you have the IMF. This is not a question for the UN. But we have a different approach.
You would say that was before Monterrey Conference?
Yes, before Monterrey. So people was on this kind of issues, hardcore issues of development. It was not for the UN. The UN, you have diplomats. Let them to be discussed at the IMF. And what was important for us? Participants. So there was timing, was the right moment. And we say this is going to be, and I don't know if people are aware of that, Monterrey was not a UN conference, it was an international conference. And we did it after some negotiation. We say this is going to be our conference, but also it's going to be the conference of the IMF, the World Bank. So we cannot say UN conference, but it was led by the UN. But if you go to the, the official title, it says International Conference on Finance for Development. All the others are United Nations Conference on Environment, United Nations Conference on Social, but that was different. And that was to say, look, if we want to discuss finance, you need to have the people from the Ministry of Finance, they need the IMF. If you want to discuss the development assistance, you need to have the people from the World Bank. So it was, and also it's not only an international institution. It needs to be open to the private sector, because the private sector was the key one now on development, and it needs to be also with the NGOs, because they are, the people who push forward things, that they have the passion for things that.
On the ground.
So it was a conference, a different type of conference. And the third element, and then I can stop if you like, is that it's about the agenda. The agenda was, we call it an holistic agenda of three main areas. Was sustainable development, was really on the domestic issues, because at the end of the day, and we say it from the start, this is not just asking others what they can do for you. First, you need to have the right policy, then you need to have no corruption. So don't think that it's going to be something that we are there to request things from the developed world, but it's going to be domestic or national, international issues like trade, finance, and systemic issues. That is more complicated to explain, but in some ways we need to be there where decisions are taken. So you need to change perhaps the rule how the IMF and the World Bank have been, how they take decisions. We need voice, participation, and voice in the resolution. So we have it took 5 years, the negotiation for the resolution.
The negotiation for the Monterrey conference.
Yeah, it took 5 years to negotiate Monterrey. It was not a conference.
In '97, and you were part of the negotiations.
I was a representative of the group of 77, that it represents the developing world. So, and I really enjoyed. Intellectually, it was very demanding, and I think Chile, as you mentioned, is a country, I will say, we're a moderate country, we're a market economy, we are open. No one can feel that we are here, to make a great thing. We're going to make a great thing, but in a very slow fashion and in the good trend. But we want to discuss things. We don't want to impose. We're a small country. We believe in multilateralism.
And you would say Chile has a lot of credibility
exactly.
among developing and developed
exactly.
countries.
So we, and not only Chile, because Mexico was a key actor, but Mexico was not part of the 77.
Right.
So I was there as a delegate who was negotiating. First, I was in charge of trade issues. Then they gave me financial issues, and then I went to, because we have a very interesting group. Guyana was very important. I remember Ambassador Insanali, who was later on Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the current ambassador also. But so it was in some way also a Latin American and Asian. Last thing on timing, because there is so many things that we can discuss. This meeting came after what was called the Asian crisis. Mm-hmm. Remember? Right. When Asia, there was a problem with Indonesia, Thailand, etc. They were the highest, and they were and suddenly we have a problem. And that, so Monterrey, in some way, it was that crisis, and we took it as an opportunity. And we created Monterrey, and we can talk later on what is the meaning and substance conceptually. Was something that is not going on now, because now we have different crises, an economic crisis again. But I don't see, the energy, the feeling that we were doing something different, that we will take the lesson and we will change, and we were talking about the new financial architecture, etc. But now.
So you mentioned how Monterrey was after the Asian crisis, but Doha was during the 2008 crisis. How would you compare? Has Doha managed to move forward the topic of financing for development? How did the crisis impact the negotiations for Doha, if in any way?
And not politically very correct. I mean, Monterrey was one thing, Doha was different. Doha was the moment was not politically, was not the right moment. And I remember because at the time we have a president of the GA who was from Nicaragua, you remember Paulo Scotto, and they make a lot of effort. And they created a group with José Antonio Campo and other experts who make very good proposals, but the mood was not there. I mean, when we discussed Monterrey, it was 1 year after 9/11, so that create a mood that we need to do something for the developing world. We don't want to be. There
was a momentum in 2000.
Unfortunately,
you don't feel there was the same
I don't think it was.
momentum in
Unfortunately, there
2008?
were good ideas. You may know Campo, who's a fantastic economist, but I don't feel that you have the you need to convince, you cannot go here alone. You need to go together with the developer.
Yeah.
And there was a sort of, and perhaps while I really feel he was a fantastic, Padre Descoto was not the man who the North will trust, to be very honest. I mean, and but he was, I can remember him, but
so it's a lot of things. It's the international context, it's the political figures who are involved, it's the countries who are pushing forward.
As you say, it's a lot of things.
When we talk about financing for development, and you mentioned national, international issues, systemic issues, so can you mention some of the components of financing for development and then tell us which ones you believe have advanced and which ones are kind of lagging behind?
Well, we have advanced a little bit on the trade issues, a little bit. And on that, as you know, we're still working on many things that started in the 60s. I think, I as a diplomat here, I realized that President Fernandez made a proposal maybe last year on the problem of the prices for commodities, and in particular, how to avoid speculation on the price.
Particularly on food.
Yeah. So this means it still is there, but there's some small ideas that you can use in order to push forward in the right direction. Another thing that was in Monterrey that was a good result, innovative finance. Innovative finance was kind of a small paragraph.
And it has grown.
And it has grown now, and there is a committee, and there is, in the case of Chile or Brazil in Latin America, but in particular France and Germany are doing a lot of work on that. And we are trying to make things move in the sense that we need a more inclusive globalization, where you're not going to change globalization. And
so when you talk about innovative financing, there is a lot of involvement of private sector as well in it, isn't there?
Yes.
Can you give us some examples of innovative financing?
The first example that came to my mind is we, at least Chile and Brazil, we have a tax of $2 to those people who use airplanes, who float. And that money is going to take into, of course, the UK and France are there. They have more money than us because they have more, but it's fair, no? We have 15, 17 million. And then all this money goes through the Geneva to support those who travel abroad are those who are getting something from globalization. And you get it, people from them, and then it goes to those who you're getting.
So this money is channeled where?
It's channeled through those who have HIV. And those kind of, there's three, tuberculosis and three main that are not problem of globalization, but because globalization is there, the virus goes one place to the other. So it's the kind of thing we would like to see in the world. You take it from those who have and give it to those who don't have it. And that is, let me say, it is not the final response, but and when you say innovative finance, this is one kind of example. There is many others, and it's a very interesting work because it is a voluntary one, and different countries go with different mechanisms. Right. But it is there, and that was the first time you heard something about innovative finance, it was in Monterrey. And now it's part of the system, etc. And
it's a part of an everyday conversation at the United Nations.
The main problem now we have is financial system. Systemic issues. You said you need to improve, you need to have better regulation in the financial market, but unfortunately, all this idea of the new international financial architecture, after some time, people will start forgetting about that, and then you realize it's a very complex things, and because we'll be affecting a banking sector.
So let me introduce here with us is Mark Jordan, who is a GFDD representative to the United Nations, and Mark has a question about the economic global governance that he would like to direct.
Well, Ambassador, as we've just discussed, a more coherent system of global economic governance and renewed and strengthened global partnerships are needed as a starting point for the financing for development agenda, successful implementation. So in your view, how do we achieve a more inclusive, flexible and coherent system of global economic governance?
Yeah, let me start with a response of a diplomat, because the question with the global economic governance has been very complicated in the UN, because we have the G20. I guess everyone knows what is the G20. This means that the great powerhouse, those countries who are really the big ones, and are taking decisions that affect everyone.
So
And
do you think in that sense there is a certain competition between G20 and UN?
I'm going there because, but we do support multilateralism and UN. But it doesn't mean that we are against the G20 necessarily, because they can be doing a very good job. So we have a problem when the G20 was established at the level of head of state, what we can do. At the UN, those who deal with economic issues say, well, is this a threat to us? I mean, are they going to bypass the UN? Are we going to have like the 19th century decision taken just for the big one and taken to us? And we, at least we see, we, Chile and other group of countries say, well, look, those who are completely against, I think, I mean, you can imagine, but I would like to be, don't want to have problem with some of my friends. And and at the other side, those who were completely against the G20, taking decision, those who were completely in favor. Both don't want to bring this kind of thing to the UN. The United States, say, well, don't leave me alone. It's kind of Greta Garbo. They said, we're doing ourselves, don't complicate my life. But Chile and other countries, and 3 years ago, we start saying, look, we need to work with the G20 in a constructive way, but under some kind of principles. And this is whatever decision you are taking, one is this taken should go to the right institution, even IMF. So we're saying a UN system rather than the. And if you take a decision on financial issues, you cannot just be a group of 5 or 7 or 8 countries. You need to go there. And we start, and after some discussion, last year we have a very substantive resolution, a resolution that was said that, that how we are going to deal within the UN, the General Assembly mainly, and the G20. And we are very proud of that because that resolution was adopted for, we have 193 countries. And we have sponsoring that resolution, that I mean politically you are very much in favor of that, more than 100 countries. And we have people from the G20, this means Italy, Spain, Mexico, Turkey, Korea and other countries, and people from the I will say developing world, but even those who were a little bit skeptical. So we have a great opportunity now to work together and to say, look, never forget the UN. The UN is the place where the final decision needs to be taken. So you can do many good things at the G20, but you need to go to the General Assembly, and we need voice and representation on those issues that affect your country.
So in that sense, now that we are on the wake of SDGs, MDGs are coming to the end, at least in terms of time, because they were envisioned to be achieved in 2015. There is preparation work being done on SDGs. And you are part of this intergovernmental committee representing Latin America and Caribbean on financing for development, in financing for sustainable development.
Yeah.
What can be done better and more now as we are preparing for SDGs? Because we know that one of the reasons MDGs didn't reach all the goals we thought they would was the lack of financing. How can we mainstream financing into the goals? Is there any way they can be intertwined, they can be enforced in a better way?
Let me say, finance for development was very important and was very good. It wasn't more, but now we need something a little bit different. This is finance for sustainable development. So when we talk about that, and we are going to have a meeting just adopted by the General Assembly, that we're going to have a meeting in 2015 or 2016. This means either before or a little bit after the adoption of the agenda post 2015, because that's going to be September 2015. And this is going to be about finance sustainable development. So the first thing that we need to say as a diplomat, as a people who care, is in what sense finance for development was good, but what needs to be improved. The one thing that needs to be improved is not enough just to have goals and like MDGs or SDGs now, but you need to give the countries and the people to empower them in terms of how it is nice to say, look, we want you to have a very gender, kind of agenda, or you need to grow more, etc. But the question is how? How you help me to do this kind of thing? And I will say this growth is not enough if it is not inclusive. If it is not go to the people, inclusive in terms of those who really are left behind, in need. So it is inclusive growth, but also a sustainable growth. So it need to be environment need to be there. So it is a more complex, more difficult task now, because you need to have these three elements: economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. And that is the kind of conference that I will try to be working, in the sense that the conference are just a political moment, no more than that.
Is there any event being planned now? We
Yes.
know that last year there was a high-level dialogue that was organized very ad hoc on financing for development. Is there anything planned?
Well, there is many
this
events,
year?
to be very honest. On social inclusion, the President of Mexico is organizing a very important meeting this year in Mexico. So there you're going to have a political moment to discuss social issues.
What time will it be?
I don't have exactly the date, but I know that they're doing
It's
it,
in the
and it is important. We have in Lima, we are going to have at the end of November or December of this year a very important meeting on climate change. That is going to be also a very. In September, and so it's too many meetings rather than, and the Secretary General is organizing one of the, at the margin of the head of state meeting, a political event on environment, because he's from Korea, he's pushing that forward. And for intergovernmental negotiation, we're going to have, once we decide on the SDGs, we don't have time to go now for SDGs, but it's the Sustainable Development Goals, we will start intergovernmental negotiation on the agenda for development post-2015. And that is going to be very important. I don't know if we have time to discuss that. But immediately after that, you will be discussing Monterrey Plus. And that is the key thing for me. Because we are going to have not a Doha meeting, we are going to have something different, in the sense that we're going to get all the issues of Monterrey. We're going to discuss about official development assistance. We're going to be discussing how to have a better trade system. We're going to be discussing how to regulate the financial system, etc. All those issues, but in the new context, where the question of, I will say, environment is going to be very, very much there. It wasn't Monterrey, but it was not a key thing. And the question is, at the UN, we have three different tracks. The track of the people who were negotiating environmental issues around Ministry of Environment, and then we have Rio, the track of those on social issues, and you have the social summit, and Chile was very much on that, and the track on economic issues that was Monterrey.
So they have to be brought together.
They need to brought together, and it's not so easy.
So in that sense, as a practical recommendation, we have another question.
Yeah, we
from
would
Mark.
like to know, what do you believe the role of civil society and NGOs would be within sort of the framework that we've been discussing? How would you view that within the
What
process?
would be your recommendations for us and other NGOs that would
Yeah.
like to support bringing together these three tracks? And
I mean, they're very important politically, I will say, and these things are not only technical. I mean, of course, you need to have people from the ministries, and think about how to resolve a very specific and technical problem. When we were discussing the question of the financialization of the price of the commodity. It's a very technical one, of course. You need to see how you deal with that. But without the people and the NGOs, people organized, because NGOs at the end are the people who are organized, how you cannot move things, because you are fighting for something different, and those who are getting those who have an interest in not seeing any change are very difficult to push forward. And also is the NGOs from the developed world and developing world get together. It's not a question of north-south. And I will say that they need to be organized. They need to talk among themselves. Don't have just NGO for environment, NGO for economic, NGO for science, social issues, because the complexity needs now an integration of NGOs. And I don't know how you are key if you get together, if you have clarity in terms of what it is being thought, if you discuss, you have good papers, if you have some meetings where you mobilize people and make clear to the UN that you need to be part of it. And I've just mentioned that we have before yesterday a meeting on Latin American people in Santiago, And it was very clear we need to have the NGOs there. So we invite, but not only NGO, private sector too. Well, let me say, if you don't have the private
So
sector.
it's the experts, the NGOs, the political will, the international organization. And these alliances have been clearer and stronger during the years.
In Monterrey, they were a key one.
Yes.
Because they were invited, they have the space, and it was clear that we needed them. And you need to mobilize young people, for instance. There,
Right.
where you have the ideas, you know, they are not tired of the requesting for the
Right.
10 times, you know, a more just
They have the
world,
patience and
exactly.
the
So I would
passion.
say, but they need to be from the start.
Right.
I mean, don't accept invitation at the end just for the conference and to be there with a beautiful face. Just
So
to say
be involved from the beginning, be
From the
informed
beginning.
and get involved from the beginning and make sure you're part of the process from the beginning.
and clarity on what you want and some focus.
Thank you,
because if
Mr.
you want
Ambassador.
Too many things, you know.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we are hoping to see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Adios.
Thank you for watching the Global Roundtable organized by the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. Today we have spoken to Mr. Eduardo Galvez, Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Chile to the United Nations.